At 23:33 on August 6, 1943, the SG radar aboard USS Dunlap picked up 4 Japanese destroyers at nearly 30,000 yards, far beyond what the enemy could possibly detect. Commander Frederick Muzger, leading Task Group 31.2 from Dunlap's bridge, had been preparing for this exact moment. The Japanese were steaming confidently through the dark waters of Vela Gulf, completely unaware that American destroyers had already locked onto them with precision radar. 17 minutes later, 3 of those ships would be sinking, and the Imperial Japanese Navy would suffer a defeat so sudden and so overwhelming that their surviving officers struggled to understand how it even happened. The Japanese column consisted of 4 destroyers carrying roughly 900 troops bound for Vela on Column Bangura. Captain Kaju Sugiura commanded from Hajikase, supported by Arashur and Kawakaze, both crowded with embarked soldiers, while Shiger, unloaded and faster, served as escort. Sugiura had used this same route 3 times before without interference. His subordinate, Commander Tamichi Hara of Shiger, warned that repeating the same course again was dangerous, even reckless. But Sugiura dismissed the concern. The Tokyo Express had run for months without serious opposition, and Japanese confidence in their night fighting skill remained almost absolute. Muzger's American force consisted of 6 destroyers deployed in 2 divisions. Dunlap, Craven, and Maury formed Division A1, each with full torpedo batteries. Division A2, Lang, Sterrett, and Stack, carried fewer torpedoes but far heavier anti-aircraft armament. Crucially, all 6 ships carried SG surface search radar. For the first time in the Solomon Islands campaign, U.S. destroyers would fight independently, without cruiser backup. This alone signaled a major evolution in American naval doctrine. From the first battles around Guadalcanal in 1942 through the early months of 1943, the United States had lost nearly every night action. The disaster at Savo Island on August 9, 1942 remained the most painful. 4 Allied cruisers were sunk in only 37 minutes: Astoria, Quincy, Vincennes, and HMAS Canberra, with horrific casualties. American Air Search SC radar detected vague returns that night, but its long 1.5-meter wavelength made it almost useless in island-cluttered waters. On the scopes, ships and shorelines looked nearly identical. Lookouts did not see the Japanese column until dozens of long lance torpedoes were already in the water. This pattern repeated at Cape Esperance, the first and second naval battles of Guadalcanal, Tassafaronga, and Column Bangura. The U.S. possessed radar technology but lacked the doctrine to exploit it. Meanwhile, the Japanese mastered night fighting. Their lookouts were legendary. Their Type 93 long lance torpedoes could reach 40,000 yards, more than double the range of America's Mark 15s. They could fire first, inflict brutal damage, and slip away unseen. Everything changed with SG radar. Developed in 1941 at MIT's Radiation Laboratory using the British cavity magnetron, SG operated on 10-centimeter wavelengths. Its microwave beam produced crisp, unmistakable target definition. Operators could differentiate a ship from an island instantly. The PPI, Plan Position Indicator, gave a clean circular display showing bearing and range simultaneously, revolutionary for the time. The first operational SG radar went aboard USS Augusta in April 1942. By mid-1943, most frontline destroyers had them, but using radar correctly required new thinking. Many senior officers still trusted visual confirmation over electronic contacts, a hesitation Japan repeatedly exploited. Commodore Arleigh Burke changed that. Studying earlier defeats, he built new tactics for destroyer warfare. Use radar to approach undetected, close to torpedo range, fire first, and only open gunfire after torpedoes were in the water. Many officers doubted radar-based attacks, but Burke's successes with Destroyer Squadron 23 forced the Navy to reassess everything. When intelligence reported another Tokyo Express run to Vela, Rear Admiral Theodore Wilkinson took a bold step. He assigned the interception to a destroyer-only task force under Muzger and gave him permission to ignore traditional doctrine. Wilkinson's staff suggested avoiding torpedo attacks altogether, but Muzger rejected the advice, confident that radar-guided torpedoes were the key to victory. On the morning of August 6, Muzger's 6 destroyers left Purvis Bay near Guadalcanal. Before getting underway, he gathered all captains for a detailed briefing. Division A1 would conduct the radar-guided torpedo strike. Division A2 would maneuver across the Japanese T and deliver gunfire after the torpedoes hit. Radio silence was mandatory. No searchlights, no gun flashes, and no revealing movements. Every ship had to trust its radar and synchronize firing solutions precisely. The Combat Information Centers, still a new concept in 1943, became the heart of the operation. These cramped but powerful rooms blended radar operators, plotters, and communicators into one coordinated brain, turning raw data into firing orders. That night, the task group slipped into Vela Gulf under an overcast sky with no moon. Visibility was under 1,000 yards, making lookouts practically blind but giving radar a perfect stage. The two American divisions formed parallel columns, just 500 yards apart, moving north at 25 knots. SG radar painted Column Bangura clearly to the east and Vela La Vela to the west. The Gulf itself was empty until 23:33. Dunlap's radar operator called out 4 contacts bearing 312 degrees, at a range of 29,500 yards. Craven confirmed the echo almost immediately, then Maury. The Japanese destroyers were exactly where intelligence had predicted, 4 ships in line-ahead formation, charging south at nearly 30 knots and closing fast. Muzger ordered Division A1 to ready their torpedo attack, while Division A2 quietly shifted into position to cut across the Japanese formation. Radio silence held across every ship. Inside each combat information center, operators tracked the enemy with absolute focus. The range tightened. 27,000 yards. 25,000. 20,000. Still, the Japanese showed no hint they were being hunted. Whether Column Bangura's high terrain masked the American approach or their equipment simply couldn't match SG radar, the result was the same: they were blind in the dark. At 15,000 yards, Muzger pushed Division A1 forward. The destroyers accelerated to 30 knots. As the firing solution updated, the range closed. 10,000. 9,000. 8,000 yards. At 23:41, with the enemy at 7,500 yards, Muzger finally gave the order. Dunlap launched 8 Mark 15 torpedoes, quickly followed by 8 from Craven and another 8 from Maury. 24 torpedoes sliced into the darkness in barely a minute. All 3 American destroyers immediately peeled hard to starboard, using the black outline of Column Bangura to conceal their escape. The torpedoes knifed toward their targets at 46 knots. 4 minutes to impact. Division A2 held steady off the Japanese starboard side. Lang, Sterrett, and Stack waited, silent, watching the CIC countdown. No one could see the torpedoes, only the glowing traces on the plotting boards told the story of death moving through the water. At 23:46, the ocean erupted. Multiple explosions hammered Hajikes, Arisher, and Kawakazi almost simultaneously. Flames shot skyward. Ammunition stores detonated. Division A2 opened up instantly, their 5-inch guns lighting the Gulf like a thunderstorm. At last the Japanese could see their enemy, but far too late. Kawakazi, struck in a magazine, capsized and vanished within minutes. Hajikes and Arisher burned helplessly. Only Shiger escaped the initial strikes. Commander Hara watched the sea around him explode, never having seen a single American ship until the guns lit the sky. He fired 8 torpedoes in desperation, everyone missed, before retreating at full speed into the night. The American destroyers regrouped and searched the battle area. By midnight, Hajikes and Arisher had slipped beneath the waves. Shiger was gone. From first radar contact to the final sinking, the battle lasted just 26 minutes. U.S. losses: 1 sailor with a crushed hand from an onboard mishap. Not a single American ship was hit. Japanese losses were catastrophic. 3 destroyers destroyed. About 685 soldiers drowned. Another 525 sailors killed. More than 1,200 total casualties. The victory was unprecedented. American destroyers had never dominated a night battle so completely. In his after-action report, Muzger credited one thing above all: the new SG radar made this operation possible. With it, his ships could track targets at long range, maneuver unseen, and launch torpedoes before the Japanese even knew they were present. What the Americans didn't yet know was that none of the Japanese destroyers carried functional radar that night. Their few Type 22 sets, where installed, were crude and poorly integrated. Worse still, Japanese doctrine still demanded visual confirmation before action, an impossible requirement in pure darkness. Commander Hara's report to Rabaul described the entire engagement as an inexplicable ambush. His lookouts had seen nothing until the gunfire erupted. He speculated about submarines or coastal guns, never imagining 6 American destroyers had stalked him using radar alone. Japanese intelligence soon noticed a disturbing trend. American forces were striking first more often, hitting with uncanny accuracy, and vanishing before Japanese crews even saw them. They understood the Americans must have improved their radar but completely misjudged the doctrinal revolution behind it. U.S. commanders were now fighting with radar as the primary targeting tool, something Japan never adapted to in time. Within days, Wilkinson distributed Muzger's report across the fleet. The message was unmistakable: radar-guided attacks were the new standard. On August 17, American destroyers repeated the feat, sinking 2 more Japanese destroyers near Bougainville. On September 6, another 3 were destroyed for no losses. The balance of power flipped almost overnight. Before Vela Gulf, American ships often took heavy damage in night battles. After Vela Gulf, U.S. destroyers routinely wiped out Japanese formations without a single hit in return. By the end of September 1943, Japanese commanders were told to avoid night battles unless they held overwhelming numerical superiority. The Tokyo Express, once the backbone of Japanese supply, rapidly fell apart. Yet the radar advantage stayed secret. Public reports credited better training, new tactics, and improved torpedoes. Those were true, but incomplete. The real transformation was the SG radar paired with a new doctrine that finally unlocked its power. America had mastered the night. The improvements in American destroyer tactics might have meant nothing without radar. SG radar supplied the critical information needed to execute Muzger's plan. Operators in the Combat Information Centers processed data, fed targeting solutions to the bridge, and made the impossible possible. Yet their names never appeared in action reports. The system was classified. Discussing it outside cleared channels was prohibited. Even after the war, the individual contributions of radar crews remained unrecorded. The Navy credited commanders. Muzger received the Navy Cross for Vela Gulf. Iverson and Gould earned Navy Crosses as well. But the enlisted operators who tracked the Japanese at 29,500 yards, calculated torpedo solutions, and kept equipment running under pressure received no recognition. Muzger understood the imbalance. In his later career, as Rear Admiral and Vice Admiral, he emphasized to young officers the importance of listening to technical specialists. Mechanics, radarmen, and technicians often understood their systems better than their officers. Vela Gulf, he said, proved that success depended on their skill and precision. Torpedo crews, trained in using radar data they'd never faced operationally, executed perfect launches. Yet the men themselves remained invisible in the historical record. Muzger continued commanding destroyers through 1944, including Division 12 during the Philippines campaign. His destroyers participated in the massive Battle of Leyte Gulf, using the same radar-guided tactics pioneered at Vela Gulf. The results were devastating for Japan. Multiple cruisers and destroyers were sunk in night actions, and Japanese forces lost control of the Philippines. By early 1945, Japanese surface vessels avoided night engagements entirely. American destroyers dominated. Muzger rose steadily through the ranks. Commodore in 1945, Rear Admiral in 1951, and Vice Admiral in 1956. He commanded the Military Sea Transportation Service Pacific during the Korean War before retiring. He died on October 1, 1974, aged 73. USS Muzger, a Spruance-class destroyer commissioned in 1978, honored his legacy. Commander Hara survived Vela Gulf aboard Shiger, which lasted until January 1945 before being sunk by USS Blackfin. Hara witnessed the slow decline of Japanese naval power and published Japanese destroyer captain in 1958, acknowledging American radar as decisive. He noted that Japanese lookouts, despite superior training, could not compete with electronic detection. He died in 1980. Captain Kaju Sugiura survived Hajake's sinking, returning to Rabaul in disgrace. Later, as captain of the heavy cruiser Haguro, he was killed when British destroyers, using radar, torpedoed Haguro in May 1945, the same tactics that had destroyed his destroyers in 1943. SG radar remained in American service until the end of the war, with roughly 1,000 units produced. Crews learned to trust the system. Commanders learned to rely on it for tactical decisions. By 1945, radar had become the primary detection and targeting method for surface combat, with visual lookouts secondary. Post-war, technology evolved rapidly. SG systems were eventually replaced, scrapped, or sent to training facilities, leaving little physical evidence of the revolutionary tool. USS Dunlap, Muzger's flagship at Vela Gulf, survived until 1947, when she was decommissioned and scrapped. Her radar, like so many others, disappeared. Today, a small exhibit at the Naval History and Heritage Command shows 6 destroyers in column formation at Vela Gulf. The caption highlights Muzger's task group and the battle as a turning point in night warfare, but there's no mention of SG radar, the combat information centers, or the anonymous operators who made the victory possible. Their work changed the course of the Pacific War, yet their names remain invisible. Vela Gulf proved a crucial lesson: technological breakthroughs do not win battles alone. They succeed when paired with capable operators, innovative doctrine, and commanders willing to trust unfamiliar systems. The American destroyer's dominance of night combat was born from the intersection of radar, doctrine, and human skill. That combination allowed a small task group to annihilate a Japanese force in darkness, with minimal casualties. If this story of innovation and bravery captivated you, please like this video. Help us bring more forgotten World War II stories to light. Subscribe to explore untold histories, leave a comment sharing where you're watching from, and join our global community of history enthusiasts and veterans. Thank you for keeping these stories alive. Join our mission to uncover forgotten battles. Like, subscribe, and share to keep history alive.